Vinland Saga, Gardar's blood-soaked path to Arnheid. In the world of Vinland Saga, we are forced to confront one of these forgotten stories. It is the tale of a man who never wished to be a warrior, an explorer, or a king. Only a ghost, haunted by a single name, on a journey that was no glorious saga, but a desperate crawl through hell, a journey driven by love so powerful it tore him apart, leaving behind only one fragment of purpose. This is the story of Gardar, his blood-soaked path back to Arnheid. To understand the beast, we must first remember the man. Before the madness clouded his eyes, before the slave brand seared his flesh, before his hands were stained with blood, Gardar was a husband, a father. His world wasn't built across kingdoms. It was rooted in his farm. His ambition was not for glory, but for the dignity of a well-lived life, a good harvest, his son, and the gentle presence of his wife, Arnheid. Their love was all he ever needed. It was something tangible, real, and nourishing, like the dark earth he tilled. With their son, they had a future. This was Gardar's Vinland. He had already found it. He had no need to sail across the horizon in search of a fabled land free of war and slavery, for his paradise was already within the four walls of his home and in the arms of his family. But the world of the 11th century is a hungry wolf, and it does not spare the sheep. War, the great churning engine of the age, came for Gardar. He was torn from his peaceful life to fight another man's battle. And in his absence, the vacuum was filled by the era's casual cruelty. Raiders and Vikings descended upon his home. They took his harvest, burned his house to the ground, and stole the one thing that gave his life meaning. Arnheid was eventually sold into slavery. Upon his return, Gardar found only ashes, his home a funeral pyre, his son lost to the flames and the sword, and Arnheid gone, captured, sold, and swallowed by the vast, monstrous machine of the slave trade. In that world-ending moment, the man named Gardar died, the farmer, the husband, the father. All of his parts burned away with what little remained. Something else was born in their place, something broken. His own capture followed soon after. He too was chained and reduced to property, and in the brutal, dehumanizing machinery of slavery, a new Gardar was shaped, piece by painful piece. Slavery in the Viking Age was more than the mere absence of freedom. It was the erasure of self, the lash, the brand, the constant and casual cruelty. These were not just tools of control. They were instruments designed to strip a person of their name, their past, their very humanity. A slave was an animal, a tool, an object. Your memories became a liability, a weakness to be beaten out of you. Your hope is a fantasy to be starved into submission. For years, Gardar endured this process. His body was broken, his spirit relentlessly battered. Most men would have succumbed. They would have forgotten who they were, surrendering to the numb, living death of their new reality. But in the deepest, most fortified chamber of Gardar's soul, one thing remained, one word, one name: Arnheid. It ceased to be a simple memory. It became the only piece of his former self that he refused to surrender. As his masters worked to erase his identity, Gardar clung to hers. The thought of Arnheid became a prayer, a mantra, and the center of his obsession with peace. He was no longer a man with a past or a future. He had become a tunnel, a vessel for a single goal: to find Arnheid. And so came the escape. It was not a heroic bid for freedom. It was the first violent, bloody step in his descent. When Gardar finally broke his chains, he was not a man reclaiming his life. Instead, he was an animal, chewing off its own leg to escape a hunter's trap. From that moment on, he killed his captors with desperation. There was no honor in it, no glory, just the cold, blood-soaked removal of anything that stood between him and his purpose. This is the Gardar we first meet on Ketil's farm. A hulking, silent figure covered in filth and blood, an axe in his hand. He is a terrifying sight. He moves with a restless mind, his eyes searching, always searching. The men of the farm, led by the bold warrior Snake, see only a runaway slave, a dangerous beast to be captured or put down. To them, he is a problem that must be solved. His fight against Snake's company is a perfect illustration of what he has become. He is not a duelist like Snake, nor a skilled warrior like Thorfinn. He is a battering ram of flesh and bone. He absorbs wounds that would kill any other man, and his body moves only by the force of his will. Watching from the sidelines, Thorfinn and Einar see something strangely familiar. Thorfinn especially sees a dark reflection of his own past. But where Thorfinn's purpose was poisoned by vengeance, Gardar's is fueled by love. And the grief that defines his story reveals a cruel truth. When pushed to their limits, the two look alike. Both leave behind a trail of blood. Both burn the world down around them. Gardar's path of violence is not a choice, it is an inevitability. He has nothing left but yearning. The cruel world has taught him nothing but violence. Violence is the only language he knows, the only path he sees to reach what he desires, what he needs, and what waits before him. Until, finally, he finds her. There he stands before Arnheid. This should have been a moment of grace and the end of a long, impossible war. But instead, it is perhaps the most heartbreaking moment of all. Just imagine. You stand there, not as the farmer, husband, and father you once were, but the hollow opposite of it all. And the woman you find is not the wife you desperately remember. He can barely speak, and his mind, which was warped by trauma and madness, struggles to process what he sees. For a fleeting moment, the ghost of the man he once was peers out from behind the monster's eyes. But he cannot truly connect. He is too broken. The damage runs too deep. And Arnheid, she has survived, but survival in this world always comes at a cost. She has endured her own silent, private hell on Ketil's farm. She has been forced into her master's bed, used as a pawn in his family's twisted dynamics. Now she carries Ketil's child. Her reality is a complicated blend of compromise, pain, and a desperate search for fleeting peace. Into this fragile moment crashes Gardar. He is the past she had to bury just to keep living. Their reunion is not a tender embrace, but a collision of two deeply wounded souls. There is pain and suffering between them, so wide that it cannot be crossed with a single look or a whispered name. And he realizes, at last, that the life he came to reclaim no longer exists. In his final, confused days, Gardar's story becomes completely filled with sorrow. He holds on to the memory of their son and talks about running away and starting over. But he cannot see the slave mark on Arnheid's back, or the new life growing inside her, or the years of pain in her eyes. He is a man lost in time, a soldier whose war should have ended long ago. His goal was simple: to find Arnheid. And he did, but he never planned for what would happen after. His path only ever led to her. He never even imagined a life with her. And through this, Gardar shows us that even if you fight your way back to a place, you can never turn back time. His end is just as brutal and sad as the rest of his journey. Wounded and cornered, he makes one final shaky stand. Not for himself, not for freedom, not for any grand idea, but for her. It is his last, instinctive act as her husband, his final moment as her protector. He fights to shield Arnheid from the fallout of his own return. He dies in the dirt of Ketil's farm, far from the home he once dreamed of. He does not die a hero, but a runaway slave. A problem that has finally been dealt with. His death is not noble. There are no stories told about him. He is simply gone. Another nameless man buried and forgotten by history. So what then is the meaning of Gardar's blood-soaked path? Was it all for nothing? Because his story serves as a mirror held up to Thorfinn, showing him the brutal end of a life driven by a single obsession. A mirror held up to Einar, reminding him of the hell he barely escaped and the fragile, fleeting nature of the freedom he now holds dear. Gardar represents the human cost of the Viking world. In truth, all of Gardar's sacrifices failed. He did not save Arnheid. He did not get his life back. Instead, he brought more pain, more chaos, and, in the end, played a part in Arnheid's tragic death. But his failure serves a greater purpose in the story of Vinland Saga. He is the ghost that lingers in the farmland arc. His tragedy cements Thorfinn's vow to build a better world, a true Vinland, one free from the endless cruelty that created Gardar and destroyed Arnheid. Gardar is the blood in the soil where Thorfinn's new ideals must take root. His path was paved with the bodies of his enemies, every step driven by a love that faced hell itself. But it did not lead to happiness. It only led to the truth, that some wounds never truly heal, and some paths once taken can only end in ruin. What makes it even more painful is that his name will be forgotten, never sung in the halls of Valhalla. Maybe he was just another man who slipped through life, unnoticed by history. Thanks for watching this video, and if you liked it, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more videos like this one.